somebody had asked me at the table, what do you do for a day job? And at the time I was still working in staffing and I like staffing. And I kind of answered, yeah, I'm happy with my day job. I'm happy with what I'm doing. So that person asked me again, tell me again what you do for a day job. And do you like what you're doing? And at the time I didn't know her. I know her now, but I was like, why is she asking me this again? And so I answered again. And she says, well, straight out in front of everybody, I don't believe you. When I answered that I was happy with my day job. And I'm thinking, who is she to tell me this?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the One Step Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Jimenez, and we are sharing inspirational stories of change makers in different fields, whether in business, nonprofits, sports, etc. So you can gain practical insights for your one step, whether you're first or you're next. And today I have an absolute special guest. This is the type of person where Sheryl Sandberg wrote in saying, if I had Nikki when I was growing in my career, it would have saved me so much headache and trouble. She is the CEO of South Florida Tech Hub, and on top of that, a mother as well, and balances both extremely well. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Nikki Cabus.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I'm so happy to be here.
We're really glad to have you, Nikki. Thank you so much for being here. And it's definitely an honor for you to spend your time with us. I have a high respect for South Florida Tech Hub, something that you may not be aware of. It is because of South Florida Tech Hub, I was able to actually get my first full-time job in the tech industry. Actually, my first
I did
full-time
not
job
know
ever.
that. Yeah, that's awesome.
And to make a long story short, it was at an event that you all were throwing. And it was through that event that I was able to make connections and gain my first full-time job. And so I'm beyond
That's
grateful.
awesome.
So really glad to have
Thank
you
you for
here.
telling me that. I didn't know. Yeah, it's stories like that, positive stories that keep me going and make me know that I'm doing the right thing. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, for listeners who don't know, I'd love to ask you if you could go ahead and share a little bit about your background and your journey that led you to transitioning into the tech space.
Yeah, so I am probably not your typical tech CEO, meaning that actually most of my career was in healthcare. I started out really young, not so much in the healthcare side. It was more cosmetics, spa industry when I was 18, 19, 20. And then as I got older, each job for some reason just got more and more and more medical. So I ended up working in a surgical center. I ended up working with a lot of doctors, NPs, PAs, placing them around the country, working with a lot of emergency rooms and hospitalist physicians, and then ended up finally working with a lot of different specialty doctors and surgical physicians as well. So everything from oncologists to neurosurgeons and everything. But it just got to the point where I think my personality, I kind of like to do new things and I always like to be challenged. And I feel like if I hit that plateau that I kind of lose a little bit of passion and interest. And so for me, I wanted to learn something new. And I was really just looking at that point to get out of healthcare. I'm like, look, I've done everything from placing doctors, working with the hospitals, even on starting very early with even medical skincare and all of that. But I just wanted something new and different. My dad actually worked for the city of West Palm Beach for almost 40 years now as an analyst. So he's in tech. And so we always were raised healthcare, technology. Those are the two things, constant careers, always going to be our spaces where people are needed, always going to be spaces of innovation and always pushing things forward and kind of outside the box thinkers. And so I was like, well, if I'm leaving healthcare, maybe I'll look at tech. And I actually had a friend who was managing a tech staffing office in Boca Raton who said, look, you have this experience of sales and marketing and you're good with people and you're a good talker. I don't care that you don't know tech yet. Just come over. I'll teach you everything. You're a fast learner and I'm sure you'll get it. And so I literally just head first jumped into it, had no idea what I'm doing. And yeah, years later, now I'm where I am. So,
Oh, that's absolutely amazing.
yeah, probably a
One
very
thing
different background than most.
Oh, no, for sure. But one thing I find amazing about that story, though, is you making a transition later in life, which for many people could seem such a huge obstacle. And you
Yeah.
navigated through that really well. And I think that
Thank
could be
you.
encouraging for anyone that it's actually possible to go ahead and
Yeah.
create change in their own lives, even if it's a career change, and your testimony that it's possible.
Yeah. Well, I was definitely told by close friends and even some family, you're crazy. That's your whole career. You know that so well. You're starting
Wow.
over in your mid 30s. What are you doing? And yeah. And the thing is really in the grand scheme of things, mid 30s is not that old, but I know a lot of times we're kind of taught go to college, graduate, get your career, you stick with it, you don't change, and you kind of build this career around one single industry. And so people are scared if they find something that maybe, like with me, I felt plateaued. I felt like I wasn't learning more. I felt like I didn't have that passion as much anymore. Or maybe you get in the wrong industry and you thought that's what you wanted to do. You went to school for it, your degree's in it. And then you realize 10 years in that maybe this isn't what I want to do anymore. And so people are scared to kind of switch, especially because it's that stereotypical, like you're supposed to do certain things in a certain order. I broke those order of things in many areas of my life. So so it was a scary move,
Yes.
but I'm very happy I did it.
For sure. I know in that journey, one thing that came up is you actually launched a nonprofit when you made the transition into tech. Can you tell us more about what was the nonprofit you launched? What was the story behind it? And even just the emotions surrounding that?
Yeah. So a friend of mine, Kelly Marbler, I'm going to give her a shout out here. She's a Gallup Strength certified coach. And I talk to her a lot. Sometimes when I talk to her, I feel like she's my therapist when we talk. But um, she has this saying, go after what gives you goosebumps. And I think a lot of times that's fearful for many people because fear is a big, either it's a deterrent or it's a big driver, right? And so for me, I've always kind of been one that I think typically in my life where I've kind of been driven by fear, where if something kind of scares me, I'm like, ooh, I want to try it and do it.
Oh, wow.
But for some reason, when it came to this, my career move and doing something different, especially in the tech space, I was a little fearful because the industry was completely new to me. And so I was actually at a birthday for Kelly, and it was a bunch of her friends, so a bunch of other Gallup Strength certified coaches. And somebody had asked me at the table, what do you do for a day job? And at the time, I was still working in staffing. And I like staffing. And I kind of answered, yeah, I'm happy with my day job. I'm happy with what I'm doing. And Kelly said, oh, well, tell them what you're doing with South Florida Technology Alliance, which was the nonprofit I was volunteering for at the time on their board. And I guess, however I answered or whatever I said, I lit up a little bit more when I said it. So that person asked me again, tell me again what you do for a day job and do you like what you're doing? And at the time I didn't know her. I know her now, but I was like, why is she asking me this again? And so I answered again and she says, well, straight out in front of everybody, I don't believe you. When I answered that I was happy with my day job. And I'm thinking, who is she to tell me
Wow.
this, But then we started having a discussion around that around the table. And they were actually some of the first people that made me realize like that I was so much more happier doing my volunteer job than I was my day job. I loved volunteering. I loved tech. I loved working in the community. I loved the people I was around. I loved the difference I was making. And you mentioned the separate nonprofit I had started actually stemmed from this experience because I noticed once I got into tech, even very similarly to my background in healthcare, there was a lack of women. Both of them are very male driven industries. I mean, yes, if you're looking at nursing, that may be a little different, but doctors is a very different story. And so what happened is that group at the lunch were like, Nikki, you need to find a job getting paid to do what you do on a volunteer basis. And I'm thinking, I can't go work for nonprofits. Like there's no money in it. I'm never going to be successful. Like, oh my God. And the next thing, like literally the next morning, I got a call from our previous CEO at Tech Hub. And he said, look, I see what you're doing in the community. I'd love to pay you to get it done. And then
Wow.
basically just offered me a full-time job. So I literally went cold turkey from healthcare to technology. And, in that experience, we did a women's event when I was still with SFTA and on that board. We expected maybe 30 women. We wanted it to be a small breakfast / brunch, kind of intimate. We ended up literally maxing out the space. We had about 150, 160 women
Oh my
there. And they told
goodness.
us, we can't take any more registrations. We can't take any more people. And I had emails from people that were unhappy they couldn't get in. And it just, for me, that was a huge light bulb moment that everything coming together over the years that we were saying is I'm doing the right thing and I'm in the right space and I'm happy. And I feel like everything's kind of aligned perfectly to get me where I am, that I don't know if it really could have gone any better, if that makes sense, just between the connections, the doors were opened for me, talking to the right people, being at the right time at the right place. I don't know, everything just kind of worked out perfectly the way it should have.
Yeah, it almost seems like the stars aligned. Just all your different passions and your current transitions
Hmm.
were all coming together in that moment. And just hearing how
Yeah.
you created space to be inclusive of women in the tech industry, just birthing out of your own transition is super inspirational to hear.
Mm.
And it sounded like you almost hit a nerve where you saw the demand, you saw an
Yeah.
actual need of women who really desired help when it came to making the transition into the tech space, which I think could speak to multiple different levels as far as to one, you're doing it scared, trying to create a change in a community where things are almost set in their ways, and yet that doesn't stop you. I think a lot of people can learn from that it's okay to do it scared, that we don't have to have it all figured out. We don't have to be the super most courageous, boldest person, but just hearing from your story that we could do it scared and it's still possible to actually create a change within that.
Yeah. And I do have a comment with that is that even just super recently, I've been in the 6 month training for nonprofit leaders with an organization called Nonprofits First. They're based in Palm Beach County. And quite frankly, I was a little scared because even in the new role as CEO, this is my first time working for a nonprofit. I volunteered for a ton of them. It was my first time working for a nonprofit. It was my first time being in a C-suite role. And I was scared to be in the room with other people that are doing what I'm doing, and that imposter syndrome of like comparing, am I doing enough? Am I doing it right? Am I making the wrong decisions? Do I not know enough? And after this 6 months, we had our graduation last night, which is why this is kind of top of mind. But they asked us at the very end, right before the graduation ceremony, give us your feedback. How did you guys feel? What did you guys gain out of this? And I have to say, like I was saying, is I think the most successful people, and this is what I'm learning as I get older and with different stages of my career, is that allowing fear to push you versus stopping you. Because if I had said, no, I can never do this as a CEO, or even at the VP level, I was scared to even go work for a nonprofit, even before the CEO. I was like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. I've never done that before. So taking that leap into tech, taking the leap into nonprofits. Then when our CEO left, I was like, oh my God. And so I had actually had the discussion with some of our board members about like, do you guys want to hire somebody else in the CEO role? I'm fine with that. It doesn't have to be me. And they were actually the ones who were like, no, Nikki, you're the right person. Like, you do this. And so using that fear to kind of push you and making sure that you have the right people around you that are pushing you. Because I know that we're often taught, it doesn't matter what people think, you do your own thing. And there is some sense to, yes, having confidence and doing things on your own and kind of pushing past your own limits. But at the same time, it's just human nature that we allow fear to get in the way. We deal with a lot of imposter syndrome, and we do let that often, whether it's small or big decisions, stop us at points. And so I think making sure that you have the right people around you is really, really important, because when you do hit kind of some of those lows or those times when maybe you don't take that leap and you really should, because where I am today is 100% not all me. Like, it's definitely the people that have pushed me and taught me and helped me get to where I am. For anybody that's listening to this, I very much stepped into this knowing the majority of my role, I didn't know what I was doing. I was really good at what I was good at. And I knew that. And that's the part that I felt really strengthened. Like, I know I'm a good people person. I know I'm good at marketing. I know I'm good at sales. I know I'm a good connector, but I don't really know nonprofits. Even tech, I mean, fairly new. It's what, last 5 or 6 years I've been in tech. So a lot of it is very new to me. So I lean on the people around me, and that saying is like, make sure you're not always the smartest person in the room, or you should find a new room. That's kind of something
Right.
that's really good to live by, because that allows us to continually push outside our box and think outside the box. And I don't know, just always continue learning and educating. And that's something that I've always really enjoyed, is kind of pushing my own envelope sometimes.
Really quick before we get back into the conversation, let me ask you, have you wanted to get into the tech space yet thought the only way you could do so is by having programming skills? Or maybe you wanted to make a career change into digital marketing because you've heard how lucrative and creative it can be, yet you didn't have the experience. Well, you can gain the digital marketing experience you need on Acadium. Acadium is a platform that not only has free courses and tasks for you to learn the skills, but also connects you with business owners who will mentor you in bettering your skills through apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are hands-on, unpaid internships that are only 10 hours per week, 3 months long, and the best part, completely remote. This is a great way to start showcasing your work, all while working from home. And after completing 4 apprenticeships, you can actually qualify to start freelancing on Acadium, to start getting paid for your work. And if you're a business owner who needs help bettering and delegating your digital marketing, you can find competent and affordable top talent on Acadium who are vetted to immediately start meeting your marketing needs. Don't miss out on drastically bettering your business or your career in digital marketing by visiting onesteppodcast.com/Acadium. Now, let's get back to the show. You're like the X person who's also mentioned having the right people around you is super important. Obviously, you were doing it scared and you step into the role of CEO in the tech nonprofit space. All of it's very new. One thing I want to quickly highlight is the fact that you weren't the one who necessarily started the organization. You joined the organization and you stepped into filling some shoes. I know there are probably many people in probably their current workplace, perhaps potentially unhappy with certain things. And the common narrative that, at least for within my generation, that we hear is go start your own thing. Don't worry about what anybody else says,
I was
and
just
so
thinking
forth.
that as you said that. Yeah. Yeah.
And yet you're someone who, yes, I mean, you left the current position, current industry that you were in to step into a new industry.
Mm-hmm.
However, you grew within that,
Yeah.
and you actually became the leader. Is there anything that you would like to encourage people who might be listening, who wants to grow in leadership and so
Mm-hmm.
forth? Can you just speak to about staying faithful, staying loyal in the current space that you're in,
Mm-hmm.
and growing into new levels?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you just made me a bunch of ideas and things just kind of came to mind as you were talking. But I think the one thing is that with the younger generations, I almost feel like my generation and younger, like you said, we're taught if you don't like it, create your own table. If you don't like it, go somewhere else or start your own company. And I think we're always taught about startups and entrepreneurship, which is great. That's huge for Tech Hub as well. And we support a lot of startups and it's an awesome thing to do, but it's not the only option, you know? So even for me, I've always had a very entrepreneurial mindset. My first company I had at 16 years old. We had summer camps. We worked with the city of West Palm Beach 2 years in a row. I've had a home-based business once. So I've done it too. But I think the difference is that there's a big difference between entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship, right? And I don't think
Mm,
we talk enough about intrapreneurship. Not everybody wants to run a business. Even that was one of my fears, even as CEO, is like not everybody wants to keep up with your taxes and your domain names of your website and doing all the businessy things. It's like we just want to do our jobs and we want to have fun. If I'm a software engineer and I love creating websites or working with these big companies that are pushing all these really cool, innovative things in tech or AR, VR, whatever it may be, we don't necessarily want to do all the business things. And maybe we're not good at business. Maybe that's not our forte. So I think telling people that if you're not happy at work, go start your own company, that's not always the best advice. I think if you are entrepreneurial minded, you have a bunch of great ideas, you've got the right people around you, maybe you are very business minded and that's something you want to do, then fine. But I think that people forget about entrepreneurship. So I think one reason why I've been so successful at like all my jobs is because I've always done things that were outside my job description. And I know that some people look at that when I've said that comment as like, well, your job is going to take advantage of that or they're going to overwork you or whatever. But I think that as long as you don't allow it to go overboard, that yes, some companies will take advantage of that, but also showcasing that, look, hey, company, this is my title and this is my little siloed role, but I have other skills or I'm kind of good at this, but I want to learn more. And so with most companies, if you actually address it with them and the leadership, they will allow you to learn other skills, maybe switch departments, do some cross training. And I think that if you showcase that you are interested in that, you become more vocal, especially, I'm going to say this, especially if you are Black, brown, female, making sure that your voice is heard. Because
mm,
naturally, and it's just an unconscious bias for most people, not that everybody in the world is racist, it's just that it's sometimes an
right.
unconscious bias that naturally, if you have a white male, the eye goes towards that for leadership. And it's a natural, just because most of our leaders are white males. So they look for people that look and feel like them, that they're most comfortable like them. So I think if you are, you know, Asian, you're Hispanic, you're Black, you're female, making your voice a little bit louder. And sometimes you do have to go above and beyond, unfortunately, to showcase those things. But if you're willing to do that and willing to make yourself a little bit vulnerable and a little bit of that, I don't know if the terminology is right, but that squeaky wheel, then you will get attention. And I think that some people are, again, talking about fear. Sometimes people are fearful to do that because they don't want to be, I don't want to be the negative one in the room. And there's so many ways to take a negative thing and turn it positive. Actually, at the training yesterday, one of the other nonprofits, I won't say the who, but was saying, hey, we provide a really, really great service, but I hate our website. Like, I absolutely hate it. He's like, I'm so embarrassed of even like telling people to go to our website and look at it. He goes, I'd rather just tell them what we do because I can share those stories and I'm passionate about it. And so, you
Mm,
know, we were all speaking up saying, hey, if you need somebody to be there, speak up to your leadership, show them some, you know, some dollars and some statistics where like, look, if we could change this, this, and this, we can bring this, this, and this in. And we all offered, look, if you need support or you need people from the community to say, hey, yes, we agree, we'll come behind you and kind of rally behind you to do that. So I think, again, a lot of what I'm saying is very kind of common theme of facing your fear, using the people around you, being vocal, being loud. I think people are fearful of doing that. And so they crush their own success before you even get there, you know?
mm. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time just to even elaborate on that. I know a few people would probably have heard, hey, be an entrepreneur. But I think that sometimes they're left with wondering, well,
How
how?
do I do
And
that?
you
Yeah.
just taking the time just to elaborate on it with some very practical insight is extremely helpful. And I know it's going to encourage listeners.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
Shifting gears a bit, when talking about the specific moment when you're transitioning to become a CEO for South Florida Tech Hub, you mentioned how others in the board and others pointed out, hey, you are the perfect person for this. I'm curious. I think you touched on it before, saying how you've been the type of person to go above and beyond your job description. I think that's definitely one quality. But what are some other qualities you think others have noticed about you that led to them thinking that you are the best person in order to lead this nonprofit?
Yeah, I think some of it is what we call like hard skills, right? But then other ones, which is probably for the majority for me, is actually my soft skills. I think that with a lot of students today or a lot of hiring within companies is that we don't focus enough on the soft skills and the culture around companies. And one of the main things is that I might not even be the best when it comes to different technical tools, or I might not be the best in certain industries or areas because just my lack of knowledge in those spaces. But the one thing that I've always been really good at is just talking to people.
Hmm.
I genuinely love people. I genuinely want to help people. I'm a genuine, like, everyday learner. I want to read and learn and listen. And I'm like Google Queen. I'll look up everything and anything. And I just always really want to dive in and learn new things. And so I think part of it was that is my ability to just be like, okay, I don't know it, but I'm willing to do it and I'm willing to learn. The organization, South Florida Technology Alliance, that I was volunteering on when I went to that birthday, and they were like, yeah, you love your volunteer job, was actually the organization that we just acquired. So they were our only competitor in this space. And so when our CEO had left at Tech Hub, some of this is just luck. Some of it's hard work, some of it's the people around me, and some of it is just luck. But our CEO at Tech Hub had just left. The CEO at South Florida Technology Alliance, the organization I came from, their CEO left, like literally within 2 months from each other.
That's
So
insane.
both organizations were searching for CEOs. I stepped into the interim just in the meantime. We were talking about whether I wanted to do it or I could do it or whether we should hire somebody else. I was, again, totally open to us hiring a new CEO. And then basically started having discussions with this other organization because I was like, I loved all the board members. I loved what they were doing. They were literally our only competitor in the space. And I was like, why are we doing this? Like, if you guys were happy with me being on the board, this organization is happy with me here. Maybe I could be the conduit to kind of bring both of the organizations together. So I just approached them and said, look, can we just like be one big happy family, bring us all together? And thankfully, the mission and vision of both organizations aligned. We met as board members and everybody kind of liked each other, got along, whatever. But I think, at least for me, that I was really proud of the fact that I could be a connector of the two organizations, knowing our board, their board. And again, one of the skills is just being a people connector. So that's probably one of the biggest things I'd say as like successes in my career that I could be really proud of, is that was a big move for the industry and the ecosystem and for both organizations to just be a part of that. And you were asking kind of about why the board, when we were having those discussions about why they felt like I was right for the role, is because I know, like everybody, I think a lot of times people, when they see somebody that has a VP or a CEO role or COO or whatever it may be, especially C-suite, they think those people have it all together. You know, that's not true. I learned very early on, even from working with doctors when I was in healthcare, I had the same thing. When I first started working with doctors, I'm like, oh my God, he's a surgeon. He must live in a mansion and be rich and his whole life is perfect. And he has everything. Like, half of them were broke. Half of them were divorced. They worked crazy
Wow.
hours that, like, it's hard. It's hard to, especially with what I was doing was traveling doctors. A lot of times their families are broken or their lives are not perfect, or there's things that going on that we just don't see outside of that title. And so I really started realizing I faced a lot of like imposter syndrome. So when we started having those discussions about the organization unifying and whether I was the right person, the board had approached me whether I was interested in that role. And I was actually the one that pushed back and was kind of like, hey, let's just do interim for now and let me see if I even like it. I'm not really sure. I was kind of really fearful of it. And, it was one of my tech hub chair at the time, Michael Fowler, that was like, Nikki, what are you scared of? And my first thing was, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not as good as the previous CEO. Maybe I'm not smart enough. I was worried about, maybe I'm not technically savvy enough. I mean, it's a tech organization. And how can I be the CEO if I can't code myself or whatever? And he was like, Nikki, that's not what you're supposed to do. He was like, you're a connector, you're the promoter of the organization, you're great at development and account management and sales, you're a very strategic thinker. He goes, I don't need you to code to be the CEO. I don't need you to do software development or network engineering or know anything about half the technologies out there. He goes, that's why you have a technical board. That's why you have great members that can do that. Lean on people like us. He's like, I need you as a thinker and a connector, and the person that you are soft skill wise, that's what we need you for.
Wow.
I don't know. It just made me feel a little bit warm and fuzzy inside. And again, I think it was the right push that I needed, because I think if I hadn't had him and a few other people that, if they hadn't pushed me, I'm not sure that I would have said yes. I think I kind of needed that little extra like push from them to be like, no, you can do it, you know?
I think that definitely showcases the importance of having the right people in your corner.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you sharing all that. Obviously, South Florida Tech Hub has done a lot of great work. I was personally sharing how the impact it has made on my life and in my story and my career. I've observed South Florida Tech Hub, previously known as Palm Beach Tech, years ago. Just the growth has been amazing to witness in the community, how many companies are getting on board, not just locally, but also nationally as well. And just the shift is making in the ecosystem of South Florida. It's been amazing to witness. I would like to ask, what is your vision for the tech ecosystem for South Florida, inclusive of other minority groups such as women and other minorities?
Yeah, I mean, I have a handful of goals and things I would love to see, you know, over the next 5-10 years. But I think immediately when you ask that, two things come to mind, I guess 2.5. So one is I would love our region to come together and be more collaborative. I can't take credit of the statement, but somebody had said to me once, he's like, you know, I've been in South Florida for decades. And he goes, the one thing that I see within our business ecosystem and especially tech community is a lot of people will cooperate with each other. They'll work together or kind of allow kind of things to go on in the community. But he's like, we cooperate, we don't collaborate. He's like, there's not actual true partnership. People aren't working together. We're not supporting each other. There's a big difference from, yeah, I'm friendly and hi, ABC company or this organization or these economic development offices. But he goes, when people start actually working together, that's when the needle gets moved. And that's my ultimate goal, is to see some of these like, and again, to preface this statement I'm about to say is that I realize, because again, I get pushback from a lot of people on economic development offices, tourist bureaus, the cities and counties. Yes, even the schools, a lot of them are funded by city, county, whatever. So there's these natural kind of invisible barriers or silos geographically. But I think once we all start realizing that if we come together as a region, we'll all be that much stronger, because it doesn't matter if a company moves their headquarters to Boca or to Del Rey or to Miami or to Palm Beach Gardens, like to Jupiter. It doesn't matter, because we all are that much stronger. We're bringing more businesses, more money, more economic development, more talent to the region. I think that once we start realizing that, when we start promoting the entire region and we really come together and get our universities working together, get the talent working together, the enterprises really supporting the talent here, keeping them here in the ecosystem, that's when we're going to be that much stronger. It's not Miami against Palm Beach County. It's not Broward against Miami. And it's not Palm Beach County against Broward or even Martin County. Is that together we will be that much stronger. So that is my first thing. My 2.5 part. Because the second thing is, we were talking about diversity.
Yeah.
We still have, in most industries, there's not enough women, not enough diversity with Black and brown. But I think tech specifically, and especially if you're looking at tech startups, there is not enough women. I mean, still to this day, startups, less than 2% of women are getting funding.
Wow.
And if you even put in there anybody Black or brown, it's even less. And once you start looking at specific industries, even less. So I think just, you know, when we're talking about technology, startups, innovation, any of that realm, I would love to see more women, more Latinx, more Black, more Asian. Even a lot of what we've been doing at Tech Hub is talking about disabilities. I know I'm going to ruin this statistic. I think it's like 80%, maybe 70-80% of all people with like that are part of the deaf and hard of hearing community don't work.
Goodness.
People don't want to hire them. So you have a huge community. I mean, you hear, and sorry ahead of time for my bluntness here,
No
but
worries.
you hear companies all the time bitching and complaining, we can't find talent. Are you really being that creative? Are you going to some of the historically Black colleges to hire? Are you looking at hiring people with disabilities? Are you looking at making sure that your staff in your work environment are accessible? I mean, it's by law, you have to be ADA compliant, but I think companies are doing the very bare minimum so they don't get sued, or they can say, yeah, our website is, and that's it. You would not be hurting for talent if you looked outside, because if 78% of all people with deaf and hard of hearing community aren't finding jobs, I'm pretty sure. And that goes for neurodiverse community, like the people that are part of on the spectrum. There's a ton of them. They're actually great at tech. And that's a new place that's coming out right now that's actually doing a lot of tech training, because a lot of them, believe it or not, are very loyal to companies that are part of the neurodiverse community. They have the ability to focus. A lot of times, if you give them a project, say, hey, this is what I need you to do by this date, and just give something to work on, they're very focused and can get things done. And I just think people have to be more creative. And I'm kind of at the point where I'm sick of companies bitching and complaining we can't find people, but they also are not willing to kind of put their time and money in where their mouth is. So
Yeah.
that's my rant on that.
No, I'm I'm grateful that you are the type of person and the type of organization that puts your money where your mouth is. I know the South Florida Tech Hub has worked with local boot camps to work with local schools and classes in order to introduce tech for people groups that don't usually have access or are even aware of what's available within the tech space.
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful that you live out what you're pursuing. Obviously, it's a big goal. These are big goals and a big vision to pursue. I'd like to quickly ask, in light of this pursuit, how do you maintain well-being in your own personal life so that you don't get too stressed out or too caught up or burn yourself out in pursuit of this goal?
That is actually an awesome question. We're being honest here today. So I would say I still struggle with that. I think people say, like, you started out, she's a mom. And I have this side nonprofit. I have a startup business and she's a CEO. But you know what? One, I couldn't do it with my mom who lives down the street from me. I couldn't do it without my husband. He's the one that takes all the kids to soccer practice and picks them up from school and a lot of activities so that I can focus on work.
Amazing husband.
Yes, very good husband. I don't give him credit verbally enough, but yes, I couldn't do it without him. But then also is, like I said, I'm still learning because like I was saying early on, that is ingrained in me a little bit to like always want to push the envelope, work a little bit more, do something outside my job description. What else can I do? And so I do have a tendency to be a little bit of a workaholic, and not in a good way. I know that sometimes we glorify that. And I think that's really unhealthy. We push being a workaholic, and that's kind of almost something that's becoming popular, like on social media. And I love now that people and companies are starting to talk about mental health and actually taking a day off for yourself. And so recently, because of a discussion with a friend and also because of this nonprofit's first training, one of the trainings was mental health and well-being, and are you overworked and are you taking time off? So I literally, because of Father's Day was that weekend, I said, you know what, they're right, I am overworked, I do put too much time in. I can't remember when the last times I'd take a vacation. So we literally just took a week to Arizona. I just got back a couple of weeks ago and I haven't done that in forever.
Wow.
And I was actually just telling my team this morning on our stand-up that I feel naturally re-energized, and I've actually been getting more stuff done. I feel like I've been more productive, and I'm 100% sure that it has to do just because it was the hardest thing to do, but did not take my laptop, did not answer phone calls. I've literally never gone anywhere without my laptop. But yeah, just, spending time for myself. And it wasn't a trip that I did with work. It wasn't a trip where we didn't even bring the kids. It was the first time in 15 years, me and my husband just been alone and had to just figure out what to do. So I urge people, even if you don't have the time or a job where you can get away like that, or you don't have the money to travel, just take a weekend, just take a Friday, or if there's a holiday, long weekend coming up, like just schedule something fun with the people that you love and want to be around, and just re-energize and put your phone away, put your laptop away. Cause it did a lot for me just that 1 week.
That's amazing to hear. It just shows there might be something when it comes to rest.
Right.
Well, Nikki, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for all the insights and the rawness that you brought to this conversation. I know listeners are going to be so encouraged and inspired from it. Just in light of your story, one closing question I would love to ask is, what is one step that you would encourage someone looking to change their lives, whether by building their career or by changing careers, to take?
So probably people that know me have heard me say this before, but volunteer. That's my number one advice for anybody that wants to do something new, whether it's to get in a new industry, learn a new skill, meet new people. Even if you learned a new skill and you're like, oh, I might be scared to go try out, apply for my first job, I don't know if I'm good at that yet. Volunteer for an organization that say, hey, I just graduated doing this. I've never had a full-time job doing it before. Like, I'd love to help you guys out. That's a way to practice your skills. So I'm a huge proponent for volunteering. To be honest with you, it's how I've gained most of my skills. It's how I've gained a lot of my job opportunities. Like I was saying, even this job, previous CEO found me volunteering, and that's why he wanted to hire me. volunteering, I would say, is the number one thing I would say for advice. If you want to, again, meet anybody new, learn any new skills, meet new people, whatever it is, just get out and volunteer. Get active in your community.
That's super practical. That's so good. And thank you so much, Nikki. We are definitely better because of this conversation. And I'm definitely looking forward to the impact we're going to be making together.
Awesome. Thank you for inviting me to do this. It was very fun.
Thank you for listening to the One Step Podcast. Consider subscribing and follow on social media at One Step Podcast so you don't miss future insights for your one step in creating change. That's the number One Step Podcast. If you would like to be a part of creating change, you can visit onesteppodcast.com/charity water. As you are on your journey, trust the process because change begins and continues with one step.